Hello there, and welcome to this Wheel and Anchor webinar about our upcoming journey through Slovenia, Croatia, and the Adriatic Coast. This trip is full of highlights, among which, of course, our week-long private yacht trip along the Adriatic coastline. We'll find crystal clear waters and over 1,000 islands on Croatia's coast, which is about 1,800 kilometers along the Adriatic Sea. We'll find unspoiled beaches, ancient towns, and a fascinating culture and tradition of people who have lived here for generations. But our trip starts off in Slovenia, a country that many people never think about visiting, but you'll definitely change your tune when you see what's in store and why we start off this charming alpine country. Now, for those of you who've participated in our webinars before, you're welcome to skip ahead to the map and the detailed day-by-day itinerary. If you look just below this video in the description, you'll find the time markers for easy navigation to those sections of this webinar. But if you're new to us, I encourage you to watch the next couple of slides as I explain a little bit about what we're all about here at Wheel and Anchor. Here at Wheel and Anchor, we're more than just a travel company. In fact, we're a community of like-minded Canadian explorers. And the thing that we all have in common is our desire to seek out experiences that go a little beyond the traditional tourist tracks. But don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with visiting the popular tourist spots. They're obviously popular for a reason. But we look to create experiences that combine the most important touristic highlights with elements that are lesser known and also allow for plenty of free time, which means that you can get out and discover on your own, which is often when the magic of travel happens. But even more important than all of that is the camaraderie that comes from traveling with fellow Canadians and friends who share the same love for adventure, culture, and exploration. If you value that sense of connection, the opportunity to share experiences, and the freedom to explore at your own pace, then you've definitely come to the right place. We have two goals for all of our members at Wheel and Anchor. We want everyone to be both well traveled and well connected. And when I say well traveled, I don't mean just ticking destinations off a bucket list, although having a bucket list is certainly fun, and travelers like myself have one. But what we're talking about is staying curious and adventurous and open to shifting your perspective on how the world works as you explore new places. This is how travel has the power to change the way we see the world. At the same time, being well connected is equally important for us because it's about forging friendships that last long after the trip ends. It's about building a community of fellow travel enthusiasts who share stories, tips, and dreams for future adventures together. Throughout this trip, you'll have plenty of opportunities to connect not just with your fellow travelers, but also with the people we meet in the destinations and also the wonderful people of Croatia and Slovenia. Before I delve into the details of this trip, I just want to tell you a little bit about who's behind Wheel and Anchor. And I'm going to start off with myself. My name is Gordon Traeger. I'm the founder here, and I'm also the curator of all of the trips that we have on offer. I've been working in and around travel for well over 30 years, in fact, 35 years, and I've organized trips for Canadians to just about all parts of the globe. But of course, I couldn't pull off all these wonderful missions and visions that I've talked about without an incredible team of people, all of whom are as dedicated as I am to ensuring that we deliver some of the best experiences out there. The person that's most important for you, though, is our lead trip specialist, Paula Sarnik. And you can see a picture of her here. She is the person who, when you first drop us a note, when you give us a call, who will find out what you're interested in and try to get all of your questions answered so you can make the right decision as to whether our trips are the ones for you. So let's dive now into our Croatia, Slovenia, and Adriatic Coast program. Our plan is pretty straightforward. I'm going to be your virtual guide as I take you on a little journey through each of the countries on this trip. I'll share what you can expect to get, some of the highlights that we're going to see, and I'm going to start off giving you a geographical overview of the region. So if you look at the map here, you will see where Slovenia and Croatia are located. We're talking about countries that are on the east side of the Adriatic Sea. So of course, over here, you'll find Italy. Further south, you'll find Serbia, Montenegro. So this gives you a little bit of orientation of where we're talking about. And we're starting, of course, in Ljubljana, the charming capital of Slovenia. Cobblestone streets winding along the Ljubljanica River, beautiful bridges. It's got a very relaxed pace. It's a city, again, that not a lot of people know about. I'm going to share more about what's in store for us there. From there, we head down to the coast. First of all, stopping in at Piran, Slovenia's major town, pretty much only spot on its very narrow chunk of coastline on the Adriatic. And then we head into an area called Istria, which is this peninsula here, largely belonging to Croatia. And this particular region is rich in culinary traditions. This is where we're going to do a little bit of truffle hunting, learn all about what that's about, because it's something, again, that not a lot of people are aware of. So we'll visit some other spots. We're going to be staying in Rovinj. We'll visit Poret, Pula, as well as Opatia, as we then make our way down overland further south in Croatia, starting off in Šibenik, which is where we're going to embark our ship and then make our way gradually down through islands and all these narrow channels with a beautiful backdrop of mountains along the coast. And our voyage will end in Dubrovnik, which of course is probably the most famous city on the Adriatic. And here we'll spend a couple of nights just south of Dubrovnik in a little town called Kavtat, which will give us plenty of time to explore this fascinating and historical part of Croatia. So let me now dive into the day-by-day details of our 18-day program through Slovenia, Croatia, and the Adriatic Coast. So as I mentioned at the outset, we're going to be starting in Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia. And of course, the first question is, how do you get to Ljubljana? Well, there are obviously no nonstop flights between Canada and Slovenia. So you'll invariably be making a connection in one of Europe's main airport hubs, Frankfurt, Munich, or perhaps Amsterdam or Paris. But then once you arrive into Ljubljana, of course, we're going to pick you up and whisk you into this charming little town. After passing through immigration and customs at Ljubljana Airport, we're going to drive you into downtown. It's about a 30-minute drive from the airport into the city. We're staying right in the heart of the city. And the first day, as is typical with all of our trips, is all about settling in, getting relaxed, perhaps wandering around and exploring a little bit on your own. Ljubljana doesn't take much to dazzle you at first sight, but it has a quiet charm that reveals itself to those who take the time to wander around the streets and soak in this atmosphere. The river winds all through the central part of the city, and it's flanked by lively cafes and beautiful bridges. There's a distinctive touch of the famous architect Jose Plečnik, particularly at a place called the Triple Bridge, which is not far from our hotel, and it has a very clever design that opens up the crossing rather than funneling people through a narrow stretch. It's a meeting point for both locals and visitors, and it connects the historic old town with the modern part of the city center. Ljubljana's green spaces are part of what makes it so special. In fact, it was named Europeans' Green Capital back in 2016, thanks to its commitment to sustainability and its extensive parks and gardens. There's one park, the largest one in the city, called Tivoli, that stretches right into the center. It spans a total of 5 square kilometers, and it's a beautiful and peaceful escape from the city's bustle. Nestled inside of the park, you'll find Tivoli Castle, which is a 17th century mansion that now houses the International Center of Graphic Arts, which is a perfect blend of nature and culture in the heart of the city. From here, you can easily wander into the wooded slopes of Rožnik Hill, which is a favorite spot for people to head out for a little walk and get panoramic views of the city. Ljubljana might not demand your attention, but once you settle into its rhythm, you'll find it hard to leave. On our second day, we'll get acquainted with our local guide and set off to explore this city in a little more detail. We'll meet up with our lovely local guide in the hotel and set off to uncover some of the gems of this remarkable city. And we'd be remiss for not making our first stop at Ljubljana Castle, which is perched on a hilltop high above the city. Now, we can either walk up the hill to get there or take the easy way and take the funicular up. And when we get there, we're going to discover some sweeping views over the red rooftops and the winding Ljubljanica River, which makes its way through the city. The castle itself, of course, offers a fascinating glimpse into the multi-layered history, not just of Ljubljana, but of course of all of Slovenia. We'll then wander down into the area, which is the central market. Depending on the day of the week, it may or may not be open, but it'll give you a sense of the buzzing life of those who live in and around the heart of Ljubljana. We'll also visit the organic market at Pogačarov Trg, which will be buzzing with activity, and we'll find fresh organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and other local specialties that'll give us a bit of a taste into what the palate of Slovenians is all about. We're then going to make a special stop. We're going to head over to a place called Metelkova Mesto, which is a very big contrast to the traditional historical part of the city. This is a site where they have former military barracks that they've transformed into an autonomous cultural center, which has vibrant street art, otherwise known as graffiti, alternative music venues, and a lively creative spirit. You'll still have the rest of the afternoon to wander around and explore the city. By this point, it will have undoubtedly stolen your heart, and you'll find lots of places to just relax at a little riverside cafe, have a glass of wine, or perhaps delve a little bit more into the city's culture. Next excursion, we'll leave the city behind and head out into Slovenia's beautiful countryside. Our first stop is going to be at Lake Bled, which is undoubtedly one of the most photographed spots in the country for pretty good reason. It's a glacial lake with a tiny island in the middle and a picturesque church in the center, and it looks like something that's right out of a fairy tale. The 11th century Bled Castle is perched on a cliff above the water and adds to this storybook atmosphere. Now, on that little island, which we will take a rowboat over to, there is a legend that if the bell in the church was cast in the memory of a young widow's husband who had a tragic demise. But if you ring the bell and there's this long rope that you pull, then you can make a wish and be assured that it'll be granted. Some beautiful views from here, and then we'll head just 30 kilometers away over to another um, much less well-known but equally beautiful lake known as Lake Bohinj, which is the largest natural lake in Slovenia, and it's set against the dramatic backdrop of the Julian Alps. It's got a much quieter and more rugged charm than the polished beauty of Bled and its surrounding village, but the crystal clear waters reflect the surrounding mountains, and the lakeside paths give a peaceful escape into Slovenia's nature. The lake is inside of what's known as Triglav National Park, which is the only national park in the country, and the whole area has truly pristine natural landscapes. We're going to check out of our lovely little hotel in the middle of Ljubljana and make our way down for our first glimpse of the Adriatic coast, first of all at Piran. When we arrive, we'll find a charming little fishing village on Slovenia's very small but quite picturesque stretch of the Adriatic shoreline. It has a Venetian influence here, which is unmistakable in its narrow, winding streets and colorful facades. The town's history is tied up with salt production, which brought the town both wealth and strategic importance during the days of the Venetian Republic. In fact, the nearby Sekovia salt plants are still in use today, which continues this tradition of salt that goes back over 700 years. The tiny harbor is lined with fishing boats, and the relaxed pace of life here is quite obvious. We'll have time to wander around through the old town, soak in some sea breezes, and maybe stop at the Cafe Theater for a little coffee and a view of the beautiful Adriatic. Later on that afternoon, we'll cross the border over into Croatia and make our way to Rovinj, which is absolutely one of the most picturesque towns on the Istrian coast. We'll be checking in for 5 nights here, right on the coast, surrounded by pine forest. In the evening, we'll have a wonderful welcome dinner featuring some of the local Istrian specialties. We can expect to have fresh seafood, truffle-infused dishes, and certainly locally produced olive oil and wine. This is Istria at its finest and its most relaxed and flavorful, surrounded by some incredible history. We'll spend our first day in this charming little town exploring a little bit of the thousands of years of history of Rovinj. Like many such coastal places in the Mediterranean, control of the region was held by many different people over the over the centuries: the Illyrians, the Greeks, the Romans, and the Venetians. And the blend of various influences here has really left its mark on the town's architecture, and not to mention its cuisine and culture, creating a rich and layered identity. It actually was once an island, but they connected it to the mainland back in the 18th century. We'll have some time during the morning to wander through the old town, where Roman columns sit alongside Venetian style facades, and laundry still flutters in the winding alleyways above. The centerpiece of the town is the Church of St. Euphemia, and the bell tower here is reminiscent of, because it was modeled after actually the St. Mark's Tower in Venice. In the afternoon, we head out to the Istrian countryside for our first taste of the local delicacies. We're going to stop at a fruit farm. Istria is known for its exceptional wines and olive oils. It's something that they've been producing here literally for centuries, back to the Roman times, in fact. And we'll sample some of the region's finest varieties, maybe a Malvasia or a Terran, again, grapes that may not be familiar to you, but they have a long history in this region. We'll also have some freshly pressed olive oil and some tasty home-baked focaccia. It's a chance to taste the true essence of Istria and connect with the people who've continued these traditions literally for generations. Now, today is one of those days for foodies, because we're going to head into the interior of the Istrian Peninsula to look for one of Istria's most prized treasures, truffles. Now, I don't know how much you know about truffles, but most people think of France or Italy when they think about them. But Istria has actually been a truffle hotspot for centuries. In fact, the largest white truffle ever recorded was found in Istria back in 1999, and it weighed an incredible 1.3 kilograms, which is almost 3 pounds. This morning, we're going to join a local truffle hunter and her expertly trained dogs, and they'll guide us through the truffle-rich forests looking for truffles. And watching these dogs at work is really an incredible sight. They pick up the scent beneath the soil and carefully unearth these highly prized fungi with what's remarkable precision. But don't worry, we're going to have a chance to try it ourselves. We'll see if we can manage the dogs and get them to find some truffles just for us. After all the fun, we'll have a chance to actually sit down and enjoy this rare delicacy. We'll probably munch on Istrian gnocchi, which will be drizzled with freshly shaved truffles, and you'll get this amazing earthy aromatic flavor, which turns this simple dish into something truly memorable. Later on that afternoon, we're going to make our way over to the town of Motovun, which is a picturesque hilltop town overlooking the Mirna Valley. And you'll find here some incredible Venetian influence: stone gates, narrow streets. Largely, the architecture has remained unchanged for centuries. It's also the heart of the Istrian wine country, and the surrounding vineyards produce Terran, which is a bold, tannic red that thrives in the rocky soil of this region. We'll finish the day with a wine tasting, and in fact, you can see just below where I'm tasting wine at this wonderful spot that I found just outside of Motovun, and we'll have a chance to sample some of the tasty varietals that you won't find anywhere outside of this region. We're then going to take a drive down the peninsula and head to Pula, a city where history feels totally alive beneath your feet. The highlight of the city is the amphitheater, which is locally known as the Arena, and it was built back in the first century AD during the reign of Emperor Vespasian, the same emperor who built the Colosseum in Rome, coincidentally. The Arena is remarkably well preserved, and in fact, it's one of the sixth largest surviving Roman amphitheaters in the world. Unlike most of these ancient sites, it's still in use today. They have concerts and festivals there, and when you stand underneath the towering limestone arches, you can almost hear the echoes of the gladiator battles that once took place here. Pula's history is steeped in both grandeur and turmoil. Emperor Constantine's son and his grandson were both executed here, and the city has been sacked and rebuilt more times than most places could ever imagine. The result is a remarkable blend where Roman columns sit aside medieval and Renaissance facades. After we look around the amphitheater for a while, we'll walk through the city's historic core, passing underneath the Arch of the Sergei, which is a triumphal arch that was put up more than 2,000 years ago to honor a prominent Roman family. In the evening, we'll head over to a Konoba, which is a traditional Croatian family-owned restaurant. So we'll have a generous and delicious Istrian dinner with local cheeses, cured meats, homemade pasta, all paired with some rich local wines. I can tell you, we will come away from that, um, perhaps not walking in a straight line, but in any event, it'll be a relaxed and hearty meal that reflects the soul of Istria, which has simple ingredients that are elevated by both time and tradition. We'll take in yet another lovely seaside town called Porridge. This picturesque spot is well known for its well-preserved Roman street grid and its beautiful Byzantine mosaics, particularly the Euphrasin Basilica, which is the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The mosaics here are remarkable, not just because of their age, but because they've survived centuries of conflict as well as invasions and earthquakes. The town has narrow streets that follow the original Roman plan, but today they're full of cafes and some quite interesting artisan shops. But Porridge just isn't about history. It's also a working town. If you get away from the waterfront a bit and head inland, you'll find vineyards, more olive groves that have sustained this whole region for generations. After our visit, we'll head back to Rovinj, where we'll have dinner at a lovely local restaurant and a chance to sample some more of this region's excellent wines and fresh seafood. Today will be the day when we transition from the overland part of our trip to the nautical part of our journey. We're going to have a little bit of a longer drive down the coast, but we're going to break it up with a stop at Opatija, which was one of Croatia's most elegant coastal towns. It was actually originally built as a retreat for the Austro-Hungarian aristocrats, and you can still feel some of that old world glamour along the Lungomare, the promenade that stretches all along the coast. Grand hotels, seaside cafes line the shoreline, and there's kind of a sense of timelessness here, like nothing has changed since the 19th century. We'll have lunch in Opatia before continuing down to Šibenik, where our ship, the Adriatic Queen, will be awaiting us. So now I'll take a couple of minutes to explain a little bit about our home for the next week, which is the lovely motor yacht, the Adriatic Queen. The ship itself is lovely, and I'll share with you a little bit about that. But perhaps the most important part are the crew. And in fact, in this case, the Adriatic Queen is both family owned and operated. Here you can see Josko Pedicic and myself. This is the owner, the captain. He and his family have been operating this ship literally for years. Despite being a fairly small and intimate vessel, in fact, it has just 15 cabins, there's plenty of space for comfort and relaxation. As you can see here, there's a hot tub, there's plenty of deck chairs on two different decks, as well as a dining room, a lounge, lots of spots from which to enjoy the beautiful Adriatic coastline. Here you can see a few of our members having some fun and soaking up the sun as the ship is moored in one of the ports. We'll have typically our breakfast and lunch on board, and we have wonderful locally sourced ingredients. So there'll be lots of seafood for sure, seasonal vegetables, and different Mediterranean flavors. The crew is super attentive and professional, and they really take their time to make sure that every detail is looked after so that you can focus on enjoying everything that's in store. The cabins are cozy but very comfortable. All of them, of course, have ensuite facilities and individually controlled air conditioning, and there's complimentary Wi Fi throughout the entire vessel. One of the big benefits of being on a private charter like this is that we can decide where we start and end the journey. And in this case, we're starting in the lovely town of Šibenik. The vast majority of ships cruising the Adriatic begin in or end in Split, which is a little further south and which we'll visit. But starting in Šibenik is a much more relaxed affair. Our first stop on our sailing journey is going to be in Premosten, which is a small town perched on a narrow peninsula. And the particular highlight is the statue of Our Lady of Loreto, which is a striking 17-meter high statue, which is situated way up 180 meters above the sea. It's actually a relatively new addition to the town, but it has some amazing views over the Šibenik archipelago. From here, we sail down towards Trogir, which is a lovely and beautifully preserved medieval town built on the foundations of a Greek settlement, which was known as Tragurion. Trogir What's cool about Trogir is that it's a labyrinth of narrow streets, all contained within medieval walls. And in the middle of it all is the Cathedral of St. Lawrence, which is known for its intricately carved Romanesque Gothic portal by the master of medieval sculpture, Master Radovan. The town is small enough that we can explore it all easily on foot. There's lots of little hidden courtyards, old palaces, and charming cafes, as well as some great spots to grab some ice cream. We'll have time for a guided tour, and then we'll be back on board for dinner on the ship. We're then going to cruise down towards Split, where most people embark their voyages, and we're going to stop in just for part of the day. Split is both a modern port town, in fact, it's the second biggest city in Croatia, but it also oozes with history. And at the heart of it all is the Diocletian's Palace, which was built over 1700 years ago as a seaside retreat for the Roman Emperor Diocletian. But calling it a palace kind of undersells what it's actually become, because it's not just a ruin that's been frozen in time, it's actually a living, breathing part of the city. The palace walls house cafes, shops, and homes. There's Roman arches which frame bustling streets where laundry sways above narrow alleyways and locals sip coffee underneath. It's kind of a unique for a historic structure because it lives and breathes the city. The mix of Roman, Venetian, and medieval influences gives it a unique charm. It's historic, but also amazingly contemporary. Not only will we explore the palace on foot with a local guide who will tell us some of the stories behind its layered and long history, but we'll also have a chance to sample some of the culinary highlights of the city, like Dalmatian prosciutto, air dried, rich in flavor. And we'll have that together with some local cheeses, both aged and fresh, paired with some fresh, crusty bread. We'll also try black risotto, which is colored with cuttlefish ink and gives it a deep and briny taste. There's also some traditional sweets and homemade gelato, because let's face it, no trip to the Adriatic is complete without indulging in a little ice cream. Afterwards, we'll have time to explore the town at our own pace. You might want to stroll around the Riva, which is the lively waterfront promenade with all kinds of bars and cafes. Or you can take a little deeper dive into the city's rich history. Our cruise will take us from Split down to Hvar, the longest and sunniest island in the Adriatic. This island boasts more than 2,700 hours of sunshine every year, so you can see, and you'll soon find out why it's a favorite stop for travelers and traders for centuries. But it's not just about the sunshine and the stunning coastal views. Again, the history here runs deep below the surface. We'll have lunch on board the ship. We'll get to the principal city of our town, which is a charming seaside village with again, a rich cultural legacy. And the centerpiece of the town that we'll visit is the Renaissance Cathedral of St. Stephen, which stands proudly at the head of the old square, with centuries old stone buildings all around it. Around the corner, we'll also find the Var Theatre, which was founded back in 1612, which is the oldest public theatre in Europe, even older than Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London. We'll have time in the afternoon to take a guided stroll around town, and then we'll have a chance to, for those that wish, to stretch our legs by hiking up to the fortress, which gives an incredible view overlooking the harbor. The climb is steep, but it's rewarding. We'll also have the chance to perhaps grab a cab up there for those that don't want to make the trek, although it's worth it. Sometimes the view is extra good if you put the own effort in with your own two legs. From up on top of the fortress, we can look out over the Pakleni Islands. In the distance, the view is really, really amazing. As the sun sets, the whole vibe of our ships shifts into something uh, a little more, uh, a little more lively. There's an abundance of options for entertainment. This is kind of one of the jet set spots in the Adriatic, and the restaurants and wine bars stay open well into the night. We'll have dinner at one of Var's top local restaurants. We'll have a chance again to sample some fresh local seafood, but also some of the island's other specialties like gregara, which is a traditional fish stew, or some lavender infused desserts, which are a nod to the island's famous lavender fields. Um, for those that wish, you can take in the nightlife of Var, and it's certainly lively, or you can just take a quiet walk along the water's edge and retire to the ship for a good rest. Our journey continues down the Dalmatian coast to what's my favorite town, Korčula. The claim to fame of the island is that it was the birthplace of Marco Polo. And although the connection to this famous explorer gives the island a sense of mystery, Cortula's appeal goes far beyond his legend. After we have lunch on board ship, we'll arrive into town in the latter part of the afternoon, and we'll get a chance to wander among the narrow stone streets, which are arranged in a herringbone pattern. It was actually a clever design meant to protect against the strong coastal winds while at the same time allowing cool breezes to circulate through during the summer months. As we wander around, we'll see a blend of Venetian and Croatian architectural styles, those red tiled roofs that are so prevalent throughout the islands, stone churches, arched passageways, all of which reflecting the town's maritime past and strategic importance. But the highlight of the whole day will actually be in the evening when we're going to experience one of Croatia's most treasured culinary traditions, a peka dinner. We're going to head out to a family owned tavern in the countryside where the warm glow of lanterns and the inviting scent of wood smoke will set the tone for what will undoubtedly be a memorable evening. Now, peka is a slow cooked dish prepared under an iron dome covered with hot embers. Tender beef and fresh fish are seasoned with local herbs and are cooked slowly, which absorbs the rich, smoky flavors of the fire. The result is a absolutely melt in your mouth dish that embodies the heart of Croatian comfort food. We'll pair the meal, with some local wines, maybe a crisp poship or a rich plavac mal, all served in a cozy garden setting surrounded by the sounds of the countryside. You may not have heard of these varietals before, but that's part of the beauty of visiting Croatia is that we get to sample wines and food, of course, that we've never heard of before. We'll have time that evening to wander around Korčula's stone-paved streets and under the soft glow of the streetlights, and otherwise, again, retiring for a restful evening aboard ship. Today's destination will be the Peljasac Peninsula, one of the premier wine growing regions in the southern part of Croatia. I talked before about the Plavec Mali grape, which is one of the varietals that thrives in the rocky soil and coastal climate that this region is known for. We're going to stop in at a local winery that's renowned for its unique approach to winemaking. Here, they actually age the bottles at a depth of 20 meters underwater, which is a process that gives a wine a very distinctive character and complexity. We'll learn about the underwater aging process and, of course, taste some of the wines and have the opportunity to purchase a bottle or two because how many wine bottles in your cellar have been aged underwater? We'll then take a drive over to the town of Stone, which is famous for its ancient salt pans and its amazing medieval walls. But well, the most important part of the trip will be boarding a small boat and heading out to an oyster farm in the Mali Stone Bay. The oysters here are harvested straight from the sea and they're considered some of the finest in the whole world. We'll watch as our hosts retrieve them from the water and sample them along with fresh mussels and local delicacies paired, of course, with lots more local wine. We'll then head back to the boat for a relaxing evening. We'll have a chance to have dinner on our own in Korčula. It's a lovely place to go out and wander around, even if it's just for a light bite, or you might want to go and try out another one of those local konobas. We've positioned ourselves at Šipan, which is not far away, so we'll have a short sail down to perhaps the most anticipated stops of our trip, Dubrovnik. With a little bit of luck and some sweet talking by our captain, hopefully the harbor master will let us moor nice and early and we'll be able to explore Dubrovnik for a longer period of time. This is one of the most spectacular walled cities in the world, and you'll feel the history the moment you walk through its gates. This city's strategic position on the Adriatic made it a center for trade and diplomacy literally for centuries. The wealth and influence of the old Republic of Ragusa are still visible in the grand architecture and the elegant stone streets. Dubrovnik's story is one of resilience and power. I mean, despite surviving earthquakes and wars and sieges, the city has retained pretty much all of its medieval charm. The main thoroughfare, the Stradun, is paved in polished white marble that gleams under the Adriatic sun. It was built over a marsh back in the 12th century, and it remains the heart of Dubrovnik's social life. It's lined with bustling cafes, artisan shops, and historic landmarks. The nearby old port was once a hub for merchant ships that traded with the Ottoman Empire and beyond. And today, fishing boats and yachts bob in the calm waters, but the spirit of Dubrovnik's maritime past is still palpable. We'll wander around the city and see a fascinating blend of Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque architecture. The rector's palace once served as the seat of government, and it reflects the refined elegance of Dubrovnik's golden age. There's also many churches and monasteries, from the ornate Franciscan monastery to the stately Church of St. Blaise, which tell the story of Dubrovnik's deep spiritual and artistic heritage. We'll have the whole afternoon to take it all in. Of course, the highlight of which is to walk along the city walls. They stretch for nearly 2 kilometers, and they give you amazing views over the terracotta rooftops as well as out to the Adriatic Sea. You could also sit in one of the amazing cafes sipping a glass of crisp local wine. By now, you'll know many of them, and you'll watch the sun cast a golden light over the limestone streets as the sun is setting. We'll have our guided tour tomorrow, but today is sort of all about getting a feel for Dubrovnik on your own terms and letting the city's rhythm and history unfold at your own pace. We'll disembark from our ship, say goodbye to our crew, and then head off to our hotel in nearby Kavtat. We're staying in Kavtat because it's just a little bit to the south of Dubrovnik, in a much quieter coastal town. Dubrovnik, obviously known for its hectic hustle bustle, but we're not far away. And once we've settled in and checked into our hotel, we'll head back to Dubrovnik and have a chance to wander around and see parts of the city that are of interest to our group. So we're not going to have the typical rigid step-by-step itinerary. We're going to do a tour that is tailored to the interests of our groups. We'll learn all about the Rector's Palace and how it was the seat of government during the days of the Republic of Ragusa, as I mentioned before. We'll also, not far from the palace, look up at Fort Lovrianic, which was built to guard the city against attack from the Venetians. On top of the gate, there's an inscription that reads, "Freedom is not to be sold for all the gold in the world." An interesting phrase when you think about the times we live in now. It's a powerful reminder of the fierce independence that has shaped Dubrovnik's identity for centuries. If the timing works out and if the seas are calm, we might take a short boat ride out to Lokrum Island, where there's rocky beaches and a saltwater lake that create a peaceful retreat from the bustle of the city. Over on the island, there's a 12th century Benedictine monastery that has kind of an air of mystery about it, and a legend that apparently Richard the Lionhearted was shipwrecked here back in the 12th century. Again, we'll have more time to explore Dubrovnik at our own pace, because based on the feedback from previous members, people just love to roam around Dubrovnik. You feel like you could spend a whole week here. The charm is not just in the history, but the fact that it feels very much alive. And you'll certainly witness that by all the tourists that are in by day, particularly if there's a cruise ship in port. But we also monitor the movements of ships so that we try to enjoy the best parts of the city when it's a little quieter. Our last full day will give us some time in the morning to relax and enjoy our hotel and the town of Kavtat. But later in the afternoon, we'll take one more drive up towards Dubrovnik, specifically to Mount Surd, which is a low mountain that rises up behind the city. It's not a super high peak, but the views from the top are absolutely breathtaking, because we'll see the whole city laid out in front of us with the red rooftops, the stone walls, and the sparkling blue of the Adriatic. It's a great place for some last photos of Dubrovnik before we head home. Up at the top of the mountain, though, we'll also find the Homeland Museum, which tells the story of Dubrovnik's wartime history with some clear and honest facts. And after we head down, we're going to head for our farewell dinner in a traditional Dalmatian restaurant. This is a restaurant that we actually found on one of our first visits to Croatia some years ago, and our members rave about the experience, so we always go back to the same restaurant for our farewell dinner on each trip. And now, after 18 days, it'll be time to bid farewell to Croatia and to our fellow members. We'll be picked up and transferred to the airport in Dubrovnik for our onward flight in Europe or for our journey home. Hopefully, this webinar has given you a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of information about what awaits you in Slovenia and along Croatia's Adriatic coast. You can find more details by visiting the webpage, and you'll find that again in the description box just below this video. And on that webpage, you can get our detailed trip itinerary. That's a full color e-brochure that explains again everything I've talked about today, as well as all the details about the trip price, the inclusions, exclusions, and some of our terms and conditions. On top of all of that, make sure you get a copy of our trip specific reference guide. This is like our FAQ that gives logistics information detailing travel to Croatia and this part of the world. Beyond all of that, you may still have some questions, and of course, we are more than happy to answer them and make sure that you have all the information you need before deciding whether to join us on this trip. And so, the best way to reach us is to either drop Paula an email or give a call, and we'll be there to answer your questions. Thank you for indulging me in this trip around Slovenia and Croatia. I hope you've found it enjoyable. If you like our webinars, you are welcome to subscribe to our channel. You just go below this video again and click on subscribe. Then every time we add a new webinar, you will get a notification from YouTube, and you'll be among the first to see our new and exciting trips. Thank you once again, and I hope you'll consider joining us to Slovenia, Croatia, and the Adriatic coast, or on any one of our wheel and anchor adventures. In the meantime, I wish you happy travels.